GM everyone, we are live. Welcome back to The Big Picture, brought to you by SolanaFloor, where we unpack the intersection of crypto, of macro, of politics, and perhaps most importantly, the capital flows that most of CT ignores. I'm joined, as always, by the wonderful Mr. Thomas Bahamas from just across the pond. TB, GM, sir, how are we doing?
GM, I'm doing great. You know, the markets aren't looking too hot this morning, but I am genuinely excited for this one. So, you know, as we all know, I'm a Solana guy. So hearing about Polygon kind of brought me back to the old NFT wars. But I have to say, they have been absolutely crushing it with Polymarket. And I mean, at this point, it's genuinely one of the biggest apps and narratives in all of crypto today. So excited to hear about, you know, how they've had so much success and what the future of both Polymarket and Polygon look like. So yeah.
Definitely going to be an interesting conversation. Now, we will 100% be touching on Polymarket. We'll be touching on the $100 million raise that Polygon announced recently, their foray into remittances. I think it's a very interesting angle. And most importantly, what it means to bring all money on chain. Big statement. So I'm very much looking forward to getting Marc's perspective today. With that, our guest today is none other than the CEO of Polygon Labs, former chief legal officer at dYdX, former CLO at Polygon, and someone whose stated mission is to move all money on chain. Again, a very big statement with a lot of gravitas behind it. A person who's raising $100 billion to do exactly that. Marc, welcome to The Big Picture. Great to see you.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we are going to dig very deep into all the exciting developments you've announced recently. Of course, we're going to touch on Polygon, as we mentioned, but I want to start with the big picture, because I think you're fairly uniquely positioned to answer this question today, given where we are in sort of the cycle, if you will, given where prices are and how they've decoupled to a certain extent from fundamentals. You were CLO at dYdX, you've got a legal background. Now you're the CEO of one of the most important names in crypto, right? So very interesting journey. And you're talking about moving all money on chain. We love to hear it. Powerful statement. You've seen it all. We've had ups, we've had downs from a legal perspective, from a regulatory perspective. Can you briefly paint the big picture for us, Marc? Where are we as an industry today?
I mean, I think decoupling is probably like the key word there, right? It's a very interesting dynamic that we have right now, right? Where we are at a point where there's a set of use cases that everybody knows is actually going to change the way the world works in these specific areas, right? Payments is one of them. DeFi is definitely another one. Throw RWAs in both of those categories in one way or another. And these are areas that like have very clear product market fit, demand for them in the real world. But we also see at the same time that, you know, crypto prices are completely divorced from reality when it comes to where there's any traction in those areas. And I think that is, I think probably where the opportunity lies, frankly, for many. And I think that at least at Polygon, I personally don't even really feel like there's that much of a bear market. Kind of like there is in crypto, but like when I think of like the amount of traction there is on, you know, bringing money on chain, I mean, it's like straight up into the right, and this is true for many in this space. And so I actually think the space is in a fantastic spot, notwithstanding where crypto prices are at.
That's a very interesting angle. So with that sort of macro take, the sort of big picture view in mind, then why would you argue that Polygon's in a better position today than it was, let's say, 2 years ago, in terms of its ability to, you know, bring more capital on chain? And to what extent, I guess, does it really feel like there isn't a bear market? Because from most of the sort of retail participants' perspective, that decoupling, that divorce of price and fundamentals seems to have a very serious emotional impact on people. So while it's great to hear that, you know, Polygon's in a great position, yeah, if you could just sort of break it down for me, what's happened in the last 2 years as far as your ability to bring more capital on chain?
Yeah, I think I always split things up into like strategy and execution, right? From a strategic perspective, like my view is that blockchains are basically commoditized. I mean, the value of a chain that is like, I don't know, 10 milliseconds faster than another one, for most use cases, completely irrelevant, frankly. It just doesn't matter. And you know, when you look at like the level of decentralization, some like additional bit of decentralization, literally completely irrelevant for like real world use cases. And so you've gone to this point where, from my perspective, like blockchains are commoditized. And so that is a big realization that we had at Polygon as a company that is focused on just developing a blockchain. And when that becomes true, you start needing to find a way to differentiate that block space and make it valuable, right? And from our perspective, the way to do that is make it valuable by giving it a use that is different from others. So one tension, for example, that you get is a trading use case versus a payments use case. These are actually like very different needs that you have. You can build different things into a chain for one use case versus another. And theoretically, you could do both, but everyone always has trade-offs. There's bandwidth issues, and I mean from a human capital perspective and capital perspective. So you need to make those decisions, right? And so we very much made the decision of like, we will focus uniquely on payments. Now, once you do that, you start realizing there's actually a lot more I can do to make this block space useful, which is what are the things that people want to do in payments on chain? And really what they want to do is they want to be able to like more efficiently pay people, make it faster, cheaper, more opaque, less opaque, make it more programmable. These are the obvious like value drivers of like cross-chain payments, cross-border payments on chain, right? And so when we think of how we can offer that, for us, it was, okay, let's go actually acquire the licenses that allow us to do this. Let's go fully like vertically integrate a stack that allows us to make that block space as valuable as possible. And one of the things that like Polygon's done that's really unique that frankly the market doesn't realize yet is actually the way that we've approached this is a much more open way. So we actually, when we made acquisitions, and we did this very intentionally, we now support 50 different chains in like the solutions that we are providing. Now, one thing that we believe is that because Polygon as a chain is focused on just payments, that block space will be the one that folks choose to use for payments. But the reality is Solana will be used for payments. I mean, Arbitrum will be used for payments. Plasma will be used for payments. You can go with Tempo will be used for payments. Arc will. Like to try to like limit what we offer to just one network, I think is like a wrong mindset. Instead, you need to recognize that like there will be different trade-offs in networks. Frankly, there'll be just different preferences in networks, and that's okay. Let's actually support them all. So long way of saying, for us, it really came down to build something that is actually uniquely valuable. And now when we go into the room with any payments company, any remittance company, any enterprise that wants to like move their treasury anywhere, the conversation's very different. It's not use my blockchain because honestly, there's not enough of a differentiator, frankly, because it's fast and cheap and you can trust it. It's use our blockchain because we can offer, privacy in a native way. We can deeply integrate the wallet, and frankly, we can offer you a wallet for free because when we bundle our pricing across things, you can just get free wallets. I don't actually need to charge you for it. You don't need to go look for ramps separately. I can actually just integrate ramps in the product. And now suddenly the conversation goes from, oh, you don't need to introduce me to 10 different vendors so that I can move stablecoins on chain on a network that isn't differentiated. Oh, no, you can actually just give me one solution that allows me to go from like zero to paying on chain immediately. And that's frankly why I think we're seeing like way more adoption on kind of just frankly in like our world, because like the speed from like zero to like full integration is 4 weeks instead of like 12 to 18 months, which it's been historically.
That's really interesting. Now, you and I are in total agreement that it's not a winner-takes-all world. I think that's safe to say at this point. The industry's been around long enough that definitely there's a big enough pie, and it is growing for other chains to exist, and that's good news. We're also in agreement that I think financial use cases seem to be sort of leading the charge at the moment. Whether that's going to change or not, we don't know. Another thing we don't know is the regulatory clarity. We've seen it peak, we've seen it trough. We've had, before we get a little bit deeper into Polygon and some of the raises and some of the investments that you've made, recently we had the pleasure of talking with Rebecca Rettig. She's also from a legal background. She works at Gito at the moment. Great conversation. The one thing that really stood out to me is that I sort of prefaced the question by saying, I don't think regulation is the sexiest topic. And she interrupted me and said, no, actually, regulation is very sexy. So we spent a long time discussing why that's the case, but I'm curious what your take is, given your legal background, specific to clarity. Now, what happens to Polygon? What happens to these financial use cases? What happens to the sort of total pie of financial use cases of crypto once clarity is 100% over the line? Is that going to be a massive unlock for Polygon? And are you guys sort of positioning yourselves for that turning point?
Yeah, I mean, because we're focused on stablecoins, Genius Act was really, frankly, what we needed, and frankly, what opened the floodgates for just on-chain payments, period. And so to me, that was like a year ago is when things opened. I think the interesting thing about Clarity is actually the discussion that is being had around it. And when you really think about it, think of the difference from like 2-3 years ago. Clarity Act is not a discussion on like, hey, should crypto exist? Should it be banned? How are we going to limit it so that we can't use it? Like this whole discussion about Clarity is how good is it going to be for crypto? It's not like how bad, it's how good will it be? This is like an amazing spot to be in when you think about it, right? And Clarity is very broad, right? It impacts like tokens themselves. And when you think of like where that came out, like recognizing that like decentralization has benefits that should be rewarded because frankly, there's different risks associated with it. I think that's great. You get clarity over there. I think that when you start thinking about it from the stablecoins perspective, I think there's a benefit to the fact that you will be able to share yield. It's just how you share yield that you're going to need to be very thoughtful about. For what it's worth, my perspective on Clarity was always, I don't actually care. And what I mean by that is like sharing yield. So, okay, stablecoins are 10x better money than the existing form of money. All sharing yield does is make it 100x better. So like, this is great. Like 100x makes my job way easier than 10x, but 10x, like money is going to come on chain. I'm not worried
Still
about
pretty
it.
good.
So this all goes to just like, the nice thing about Clarity is it's all about how much better can this be for crypto, not how does crypto survive. And I think the end point of what things look like with Clarity is that, stablecoins are going to have a place to grow and thrive and continue to like benefit from being 10x better, and has kind of ways that you can leverage it to make it 15, 20x better with some forms of yield sharing. And that, crypto in general, when you think of like non-stable coins, have a place to like, frankly, be network tokens that they often are and be traded and used the way that they were intended to. It's just like, frankly, the outcome that I go back 9 years ago when I started in crypto, and I'm like, this is the spot that we end up in. Honestly, it's pretty darn good. I'm happy.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've been watching a lot of these, and I can't believe how bullish the regulators actually are on the crypto space as a whole. It almost seems like they're a little bit more bullish than a lot of people on crypto Twitter these days. But you brought up something there that I want to go over. So you brought up that your solutions are going to be using multiple chains with payments. And, this kind of goes back to the idea that the chains are going to ultimately be abstracted away, right? People are going to be going for the solution. They're going to be going for the app. And whatever chain can kind of host it on the back end and work the best is going to be what people use. Is that finally coming to fruition? Like, what do you think? Like, what do you think about the chain actually being abstracted away? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, I feel strongly that that's the case. I think like, one of the most bullish things for Polygon is the fact that most people don't realize that Polymarket is on Polygon. This is like a weird statement, right? Because for the token, it sucks, right? But when you actually think about it from a technical and product perspective, this is actually a really good thing, right? Because it does mean that you can successfully abstract it away. And, as an infrastructure provider, and you can relate this back to Web 2, like you shouldn't know whether someone's using like AWS or GCP. If you do, it's probably a problem. The fact, like, look at Railway going down the other day and suddenly everyone's like, oh, they use GCP. Like, actually, the fact that that name even came up is not like a positive thing, right? Yeah. So from my perspective is the more you abstract the chains away, like the better it is. And we need to do a good job of enabling applications to do that successfully. And then it's on the apps to actually do it. This is like a super interesting dynamic, right? Because when you think of like crypto and like the tribalism behind crypto, actually, chains historically, the last thing they wanted to do is be abstracted away. But honestly, I think we're just facing the reality. It goes back to the first thing that I said. Chains are commoditized. They just are. And when something becomes commoditized, it starts becoming really, really hard to like get people to use a specific chain Instead, they're going to look at other things that are not just, are you fast, cheap, and secure? They're going to start saying, okay, well, how can I launch this business as fast as possible? And I don't care what chain. I just want to do it as fast as possible. And like, is the tools that I need, like, so that I can easily pay out stablecoins and receive payment stablecoins and then secure them. And, are those things available on the chain? And that's what people really, really care about. I think like the chains that have been established for a long time, their biggest benefit is actually the true network that exists around it. Like I say all the time, people are like, there's so many payments competitors out there for you guys at Polygon. And the first thing that I say is, hey, they can use any chain. That's fine. We've got technology that supports it. But one of the advantages of using Polygon is the fact that when you pay out a contractor in Turkey, that contractor has exchanges that they can go and off ramp to. And when you want to pay them out, name any of 150, 60, 70 countries out there, you can off ramp that money. And when they want to pay somebody, they can on ramp it. That's not something that you can say for more than, I don't know, 3 to 5 networks out there. And that has like a real advantage when we start talking about like real users using chains.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when it comes down to it, users don't want friction, right? The less friction that they have, the quicker they can get to on-ramping to paying a friend, the better, right? Now, one thing that I wanted to go over, so there's been a big debate with like the app layer versus infrastructure, right? Like people aren't necessarily investing in infrastructure as more as they are the apps. When you said that, Polymarket, they don't necessarily know that they're on Polygon, but I do, right? When I see Polymarket, I think of one of the most successful apps in all of crypto right now. It's got product market fit. It's, there's an election going on. You're checking the Polymarket odds as that's going, right? Like this is just, it's incredible the success that they've had. So do you want to kind of talk about how you guys were actually able to do that? Like what was it that enabled an app to be so successful? And I'm sure that you guys played a role in helping that out, providing that infrastructure. But when I think about the debate, it's like, all right, Polymarket on Polygon is such a fantastic app. Like, do you want to talk about how you guys got there?
Yeah, like I start off by giving like all the credit to the apps. Frankly, right? Like they're the ones who built that experience. And especially when they built that experience, you go back, like they had to, I mean, it's gotten better and better, but they had a very abstracted experience like 4 years ago now. That is not something lots of people were thinking about, right? So I think like the team deserves like a lot of credit for that. I think where like Polygon comes in and deserves credit for, again, is providing infrastructure that enabled them to do that. There's a lot of chains where it would be very, very hard to do that. They either don't have like the tooling that you need, or like other infrastructure pieces that you need, or frankly being too expensive to actually be able to abstract away gas, because you have to charge the user for it instead of being able to like pass it off, or just being too slow to be able to confirm trades fast enough, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of like those baseline things, but I view those very much again as like baseline things that you need to do as a chain. I think like probably the more interesting thing is the scaling part of it, right? Like, there's only 2 chains that have been tested at scale: Solana and Polygon. Like that's literally it, right? And so I think that for us to be able to like look at, frankly, the straight like upward projection and trajectory of Polymarket, and for us to be able to have supported them, I think is huge. I think we've probably 6x the capacity of the chain over the last 8 months. We lowered block times while increasing the capacity, and doing that on a chain that has about 6 terabytes of state is an insanely difficult thing to do. Like we often like look at new chains that launch and they talk about like, oh, we're able to do X, Y, and Z. And internally we're like, man, we're doing that with like a chain that is not even in use. There's a massive amount of activity that's happened on this chain. So I think that's the part that we've done, is enabling them to continue to grow the way that they have on chain. And that's just something that frankly most chains wouldn't be able to do.
Yeah, 100%. Everyone's testnet is extremely fast, right? And then look at it in production. Yeah, and okay, so speaking about that, you're talking about execution. Polymarket did come out. I do want to kind of talk about the future of that. I know that they were looking at a little bit more execution and looking for some more speeds on that angle. People were, guessing what chain they were going to go to. I doubt that's the case. Do you know what exactly they were talking about and what they're looking at?
Yeah. So we're very big believers. So like one of the things that Polygon has is a kit called the Polygon Chain Development Kit. We're very big believers in the idea that like at a certain size, it makes sense for an app to have its own chain. Now, the question is like, when is that the right time? Because there's usually two reasons why you want to do it, maybe three reasons. One is you just want to control the environment. So a good example of what that would look like for Polymarket. Polymarket might say, I want X feature on this chain. Now, they have two choices. If they own their own chain, they just prioritize it however they want and they go and build it. If they're on Polygon, they have to come to us and say, hey guys, like when are you going to launch this feature? We then need to decide on, as a payments focused chain, do we do this thing for Polymarket or do we do the 100 other high priority payments things that we need to go do, right? That's a good reason to potentially have your own chain. The second one would be cost, which is like, even though Polygon is insanely cheap, you can run a chain at like $1 million a year or something like that and do like almost like unlimited transactions, right? You're just like, it's literally, if you're using a centralized sequencer, it's basically like AWS fees, like pretty much nothing. And so that is the second thing. Like, there's no doubt that like if you are a for-profit company who is just trying to like optimize cost as much as possible, you can optimize costs better with the chain. And so at a certain point, when your costs get high enough, you just say, hey, I should have my own chain, right? And then I think like the last one would be around like unique things that you can do around execution. So for example, you could tie like RPCs and like RPC like needed approvals with Oracle updates into blocks. Like you could tie all of these things really tightly coupled and effectively create this Web 2 experience, but like on chain that like you can't do in a fully like decentralized environment. So there's all these reasons why this would actually make sense for Polymarket. So my view is that there is a certain point in time where Polymarket will go do this. I like actually believe that. I don't know when exactly they will, but they will. The question is now the right time? And I view it as like, there is two of these reasons why they should do it. One is just being able to like fully control what they want on their roadmap. And the second one is like a Web 2, like fully Web 2 experience that you can't. I think the cost one is one that like, honestly, their costs just aren't high enough for it to like make sense. I think like the actual user experience proven by the fact that like when everything's good on their backend, the user experience on Polygon has been good. I don't think there's a reason that they need to right now, but I think that it's a kind of healthy debate for them to have. And like, I've looked at this on other chains. I mean, I don't know, the one that I've looked at the most is like Pump, right? And I think there's random posts once in a while, like Pump should have his own chain, right? And I think about that a lot. And I'm like, okay, the experience that like Solana's like a great chain when it comes to being able to build a lot of stuff, right? Like so many similarities, even the EVM, SVM, well, there's so many similarities in like what you can do. But at the core, when I think of an exchange, I'm like, you can create a better experience, like if you fully control the environment. And so I think it's a healthy debate for every app to have. I don't know what Polymarket is going to end up choosing to do. I think there's a
bluntly. Sorry to jump in there, Mark. Very, very bluntly, a lot of people don't necessarily leave as much room for nuance in this discussion as we're having. And you rightly point out that there's many, many reasons why they would, and there's many reasons why they wouldn't do it in this sort of immediate future. When do you think it might happen? When do you think Polymarket reaches that stage where they've outgrown their shoes, so to speak? 12 months, 18 months, and even more bluntly, what does Polygon look like post Polymarket?
Yeah. Look, I think when it probably makes sense for them to do it, 12, 18 months from now, like they will get to a point where like, honestly, like a shared chain isn't just good for them anymore. And there's too many things they need to prioritize. Call sheets breathing down their neck. There's a new like competitor like every day. Sometime 12, 18 months probably makes sense. If I have to guess it, like they're probably 100% planning right now for like what that would look like. Migrating from a chain is incredibly difficult to do, right? Yeah. So like they're going to take a long time to migrate. Actually, like building that integrated an experience is a hard thing to do, but something to do. So like, yeah, I'd expect in some time like that. In terms of like Polymarket, like Polygon, what it's going to look like. I think Polymarket right now uses like 60% of the gas on the chain. So we're left with like 60%, 40% of the activity. I see like tweets all the time like Polygon's dead when Polymarket leaves. 40% of the activity on Polygon right now puts it in the top, I think, 6 chains still. People don't realize like just how massive Polygon is as a chain. And so in that sense, like it has meaningful impact on like chain revenue. From our strategic perspective, we love having Polymarket on the chain, don't get me wrong, but like we are focused on payments and everything that we build is for payments purposes. And I look at the pipeline of literally dozens of companies that are going to be using the open money stack that have signed contracts in the next few months. We will be filling block space pretty darn well with payments. And so I don't worry about that too much. I think like 60% like customer, you should keep them happy and work hard to keep them happy. But strategically for us, like payments really is the focus, and we're going to keep focusing on that.
That makes a lot of sense. So payments, obviously a very, very exciting vertical. PayFi as a sort of categories emerging as this new sexy topic and talking point. And we love to see all the innovation that's coming out of that. So it sounds like you're working very hard on attracting, the next breakout app, if you will, or some category defining apps that will sort of plug that 60% hole 12, 18 months down the line, whenever that happens. Which verticals do you see the most opportunity in? And then I'd like to also talk about some of the investments that you'd made specifically, but payments is a very broad term. Moving money from point A to point B in the world can get very complicated. We know there's so many intermediaries, and disintermediation is this beautiful idea, but very specifically in the world of payments and PayFi, what type of verticals excite you the most? What are you preparing for in terms of welcoming these new breakout apps onto Polygon?
Yeah, I mean, to be frank, we're actually less focused on like breakout apps. I think when you think of Polygon, I say this pretty commonly. Like if you take the Web3 crowd and you say, what do you think of Polygon? Half of them are going to hate Polygon. The 25% are going to be like neutral on Polygon, and 25% are going to love Polygon. If you go to enterprises and institutions and you say, what do you think of Polygon? 100% will say Polygon is a phenomenal chain. And that's something that, we go back to 2022, 2023, when, Starbucks came on the chain and Nike came on the chain and Disney came on the chain and, Instagram came on the chain. Like there's a long history of like enterprises coming on Polygon. And so when I think of like where we are well suited, it's always been in the enterprise game. It's where we've been strong. And so we have kind of 3 kind of like ICPs that we focus on. One is just fintechs, just money movers, broadly. When I look at LATAM, we have a stronghold in LATAM, like, by the way, exclude Tron for P2P payments, like totally different needs, totally different animal. But when you actually just look, and you'll see it over the next 3 months, any major fintech, and you can look at it today, just go look at where a LATAM company has their stablecoins. It's on Polygon. Now we're going to broaden that relationship out significantly with all of them in the next 3 months using our full solution, but incredibly strong there on like the remittances and other kind of like money movement. This is all true in Southeast Asia, Africa, Europe. I mean, you open a fintech and you will see Polygon there. Now there might be other chains as well, but you will always, 95% of the time, you will see Polygon there. So that's one category. The second one is banks. Every bank is looking at their own blockchain. We offer that solution. We offer it in a way that interops natively with other chains. Very big believers in that, as I mentioned before. And so that's like the second category. And then the third one is just enterprises in general, right? We recently had, Meta go live, right? It was on Polygon and Solana with their creator payouts. You will see a lot more marketplaces and enterprises going live on Polygon, not just the chain, but just using actually more of the open money stack for wallet solutions, interop solutions, ramps, so on and so forth. So those are like the 3 categories, like the core enterprises, the money movers, and then the banks. And they all kind of, I don't need to bet on the breakout. Like we fortunately have like the ability to go to like massive money movers who are moving billions of dollars and say, hey, let's work together. And the nice thing is, it used to be, and everybody does this, just to be clear, it used to be, hey, we give grants to get you to like come on the chain, right? And like every chain gives grants to do that. We actually don't, because we actually have a value proposition that isn't use our commoditized block space. It's, hey, we will actually give you some wallets that you can use. We will give you ramps that are very unique because you can actually take cash, physical cash, drop it off at a Walmart or a CVS, turn that into stable coins and send it home. That's something
fantastic. I love the simplicity of that. Like that's exactly like what I want to see in crypto, right? Like the everyday person can just go in and use it. Now I have to ask this. I remember all of these announcements coming out, and these partnerships were fantastic. It was big names coming into crypto. I was excited about it. Like, what are these enterprises doing on chain? Like what is it that they're using blockchain for? I never understood that part.
Yeah. I mean, when you go back to like 22, 23, a lot of it was exploratory, right? It was like
Yeah.
NFTs was the craze. And some of those things make sense. Some of those are coming back. You'll see them come back, like loyalty points, for example. Like this was something that was really big on chain. The reality is loyalty points are just fun. And I expect loyalty points to actually come back on chain and be used on chain for that exact reason. But other than that, it was things like rewards that represented, XYZ. And I viewed it as like a way at the time where you could get enterprises to get used to a blockchain so that it would evolve into something else. The reality is I actually think Polygon would be in a very different spot if FTX hadn't happened, right? Because what happened was like all those exploratory engagements basically just died with FTX. Everyone shut them down one by one, where Polygon had spent like 2 years kind of like building that up. And lots of stories of like FTX destroying tons of things. That was one example of it. The only good thing that stayed around is everybody remembers that Polygon was the place where those enterprises went. So I view them as like really like their Web3 exploration. Now we're in just a different spot. Everyone knows that like they can actually benefit themselves and their users through stablecoins, and they've just done away with the exploration. They're like, okay, we're going to go do this then, and it's completely different engagements now.
Yeah, I think there was even some companies that were using stablecoins on the back end, and they weren't promoting it or telling anybody about it, but they were just using it because it saved them so much money that it just actually made sense for them to do that. And I think that's the word that's spreading around. So I think that, as we've been talking about for a long time, the success of stablecoins is unreal. And I know that you guys have been doing a lot for this. I know that you've been investing in the open money stack. Is that something that you wanted to kind of go into a little bit? I know it was Coinme and Sequence acquisitions, and this seems like exactly like the stack that you've been pretty much describing. Is that right?
Yeah, it is what I've been describing. I mean, our vision. So we hired John Egan, who used to lead crypto at Stripe. He came over to us 6 months ago, and he very much comes from like the single API kind of like Stripe background, and that's from like a product perspective that is like really good to have in our mind. And so that's been kind of what we've been focused on, is building this open money stack that is a single API that has all the services underneath. And one analogy that I can give is if you go back to like the early 2000s and you think of like AWS. Right. And we get this question a lot, is people would say like, hey, like you're trying to compete with all of these people doing payments through the open money stack by having just like one stack that they use. But like these are lots of different services. And when you went back to like AWS back then, you'd look at like these different things like databases and storage and like all these different pieces, and you'd be like, that's a different business. And then suddenly what AWS does is throw it all into like one single product. And the reason that worked is because all of those things were commoditized as point solutions. And this is exactly where we're at. And this is why you're seeing all the sales, right? Think of like the point solutions wallets. I honestly don't really know of a wallet who is not currently like for sale right now. And especially like wallets as a service. And you've seen Privy sell, Dynamic sold to Fireblocks, Sequence sold to us. You see the same thing on the ramp side, right? You've got BNK selling to MasterCard, Bridge selling to Stripe, Coinme selling to us. I think Zero Hash has multiple times had rumors of being acquired. It's because they can't compete anymore. When I go up against like somebody and I say, hey, here's the open money stack, where in 4 to 6 week integration, you can get the chain that you need, the wallet that you need, the ramps that you need, the interop that you need, the stable coin that you need. You can get that all in one contract, one set of SLAs with like one partner and go live in like 4 to 6 weeks. Or your alternative is go talk to one point solution on a ramp, which is not differentiated. Go talk to one wallet that is not differentiated. Go talk to one blockchain that is not differentiated. Go talk to one set of interop. And by the way, you literally talk to like 20 different companies when you do this, and you take like 6 to 12 months just talking to them. And then you get super confused when you're not Web3 natives at like an enterprise. And then you don't do anything. Or if you do it, you do it 12 to 18 months later. You're left with these two choices. And like some of the open money stack looks pretty obvious. And frankly, that's kind of the traction we have seen in the last like 2 to 3 months. You never know how things are going to look. But as we built this out and brought design partners on, it's become really very evident that like people have been wanting that solution. This is something Stripe's trying to, right? Obviously, Stripe's got Tempo-ish. Got Privy, got Bridge, this same vertical integration play. And so I think the market's seeing that that's in demand.
Yeah, Mark, now talking to you makes me so bullish on the future of payments. And I love this thesis that you have of bringing all money on chain. I feel like that's why blockchains exist as a better form of Rails. We have so many more questions for you, but in the interest of time, we're going to skip ahead to my favorite part of this conversation, which is a sort of a rapid fire round. We like to ask for one word or one sentence answers wherever possible. I hope these aren't too trying for you, but what would you say in 2026, your one line pitch for Polygon is to, let's say, a TradFi allocator, someone who's not necessarily been paying too much attention since the Matic days? What's your one sentence elevator pitch there?
Blockchains are commoditized, except that we are creating differentiated block space through the open money stack so that money can move as seamlessly as messages on the internet.
I like it. Now, I got to ask you about x402 payments. So I did a video not too long ago. I think it was just a few months ago. And obviously, you know, Base and Coinbase released the protocol. Solana kind of started taking some market share. And I looked at it recently and Polygon is crushing it. So what is going on with x402? Is this like the future of Polygon? Are you guys going to be leading in the agent space, or what's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it ties into, again, the open money stack. So not only is there the open money stack that's actually vertically integrated, we actually released like an agent kit that actually has the ability to interoperate cross-chain, uses the Sequence wallet that we acquired, execute transactions on chain like very seamlessly. So look, this is an area that like I view a little bit as a side project. And what I mean by that is like, look, agentic payments are going to be massive. There's zero doubt about it. Nobody can tell you when they will become massive.
Yeah, exactly.
That it's kind of weird actually to say like Polygon is an innovator's dilemma, but it is, right? Because like we have like this whole business that we're building. How much of our energy and time do we put into like the agentic side of things? And as you can tell, it's clearly not nominal because we're doing very well there. When you look at like x402, this is very, very intentional. And so I think we'll continue to make sure that we are like a leader in agentic payments so that when it is ready to go, we're in those conversations and ready to be, one of the options out there. So definitely focus.
When might agentic payments, either by number or by volume, overtake human payments?
Ooh, man, this. If I knew this, like,
I know it's a tough one, but people are betting on it.
So let's differentiate between agentic payments and on-chain agentic payments.
Right.
I think it's a huge differentiator. Like I think agentic payments themselves, I think we're talking probably like late 2027. I think it'll be, it's just so explosive in the agent space, like you can't discount it. And I think on-chain, you need another like year past that for it to actually make sense.
Still very soon.
Yeah, that is. That's very, very soon. All right, I got to ask this question. How can Solana compete in prediction markets?
Or should it?
Or yeah.
Should it? Maybe you think it should focus on perps before tackling prediction markets.
Yeah, I actually don't think that's like I'm gonna have like very unique perspectives on this. Like I actually think that Solana's biggest problems is trying to do too much. That's my perspective. Look, Polygon went through this problem. It's trying to be everything. It's the best place for meme coins. It's the best place for RWAs. It's the best place for payments. It's the best place for perps. It's the best place for prediction markets. It's the best place for. It's very hard to be the best place for everything. And the Solana ecosystem has a lot of money, which gives it like the opportunity to potentially achieve that. And going after big things is like something I love. It's in the Solana like ethos as well, right? And so it makes sense. But I think it's like a huge mistake because it's just completely different things. And so I think that when it comes to prediction markets, Solana should be going nuts trying to win on prediction markets and on perps, because frankly, Solana is a trading venue. And you know, the whole idea that like the internet capital markets like concept is it's a trading concept. And I think that that's frankly where Solana should be spending its time. Prediction markets for their perps fit in there, spot trading fits in there. And you know, Solana's a good ecosystem for that. Like there's no reason that it shouldn't be able to take off, but like liquidity is king. And that's the reality. And Polygon, because of Polymarket, has boatload of liquidity when it comes to prediction markets.
Yeah.
Really hard to bootstrap something new. Same issue with Hyperliquid right now, right? Like I love the Phoenix team. I know them well because of my dYdX days. Like really good team, but like you're competing with very significant depth in that. And it's the same thing for everyone competing with Solana on spot. There's significant spot liquidity right now, and it is hard to compete with that. And we've seen it with centralized exchanges, right? Like those who, like Binance wins in everything, but like beyond Binance, there is actually a difference between like who's trading futures and perps and which exchanges are biggest in both. Like you don't necessarily, like spot liquidity does not necessarily like beget perp liquidity, and same vice versa. And so to me, it's this liquidity issue that you need to solve. There's a lot of liquidity on Solana, so there's like an opportunity there, and Solana should be throwing everything at it. And in my perspective, it would make my life easier. But at the same time, like, why are you wasting your time on payments? Like, go spend all of that money and go win the trading market. Because basically what's happening is like the likelihood of Solana being able to win on perps just goes down by the fact that they're trying to also win payments. Right. And like also trying to win in, you know, whatever, all the other areas that they like want to win in, like go freaking win perps, go freaking win prediction markets. If that's what you want to do, go maintain your lead in spot, which I think they're doing a good job of. So yeah, I think they're just trying to do too much. And if they were to just focus on those, they'd probably do really well.
Okay, that is great feedback, Mark. I wish we had all day with you. This has been a great conversation. I'm going to ask one final question. Feel free to drop a yes or no answer, and then I do believe you have to leave us. Unfortunately, the question is quantum computing an existential threat to crypto? Yes or no?
Yes, for sure. It's like an existential threat to like basically everything that has to do with cryptography. So yeah, I think it is. But honestly, smart people solve these problems all the time. Like like everything's existential in this world until like humans choose to solve it, right? And like humans will just choose to solve this, and they are. Like we look at it specifically. The Solana team's looking at theory. This will be solved, but it is existential if nobody solves it.
Excellent. You had me worried there for a second, Mark. I thought it was time to pack up and pivot to AI like so many developers and founders have in the last sort of 6 to 12 months. But that is great to hear. I do agree with you that when enough people reach that sort of critical mass, we can definitely overcome the quantum computing threat. Mark, I want to thank you so much for making time to talk to us today. It's been a great conversation. I'm even more bullish on payments, even more bullish on all the money in the world coming on chain after this conversation. Hopefully we can continue this a few months down the line. Any final words you want to share with the people of the on-chain economy going forward? I know you're going to probably be releasing some more updates about the acquisitions that you made, about acquisitions that you have in the pipeline. Any final words on where people should go to follow along with the updates?
Yeah, just go check out the Open Money stuff. That's really it. We'll be officially releasing that API in very, very shortly. So that's it. And please have me on here next time again, because like my goal is to leave this and for you to say, I'm really bullish on payments and I'm really bullish on Polygon. That's like my goal. But no, I'm just kidding. So
that's my promise to you for the next conversation that we have in that case. But we do have to continue it because 45 minutes just simply isn't enough. We have way too many questions. There's so many topics to cover. But Mark, thank you very, very much for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will certainly be in touch. Now, ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. A couple of updates from our side while Mark unfortunately departs our call. We are going to be back tomorrow with the weekly news recap, same time, 11 a.m. Eastern. Also, next Thursday, we're here with another episode of The Big Picture, of course, talking to Jito next week. about some of the developments that they have announced recently in terms of exchanges. Big updates coming from them. Marc, once again, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your week and see you next week, everyone.
Bye all. Thanks so much.